The Death Star, the Empire's ultimate weapon of terror. When Luke Skywalker fired those proton torpedoes into the thermal exhaust port, he destroyed not just a space station, but the lives of millions who lived and worked aboard it. So here's the question: did the destruction of the Death Star cross a moral line? Was it a justified act of war, or an atrocity of its own? From the perspective of the Rebel Alliance, destroying the Death Star was not just justified, it was necessary for survival. The Death Star had already obliterated Alderaan, killing an estimated 2 billion civilians in an instant. Its very existence was a weaponized deterrent designed to enforce obedience through fear. If it wasn't destroyed, countless more worlds would have suffered the same fate. From this angle, the 1.5 to 2 million lives lost aboard the first station were tragic, but unavoidable casualties in a war against tyranny. Military ethicists call this the principle of double effect. When an action intended to stop greater harm causes unavoidable collateral damage. Even Mon Mothma, the leader of the rebellion, emphasized that the Alliance fought not to destroy, but to restore freedom. For the rebels, taking down the Death Star was not about vengeance, but about preventing the Empire from continuing its reign of terror. If the Alliance had spared it, millions, or even billions, more innocent lives could have been lost. In that light, the destruction of the Death Star was the only moral option left. If you're enjoying these kind of deep dives into Star Wars morality, make sure to subscribe. We've got plenty more debates lined up, some of which will challenge the way you see both the Jedi and the Sith. But here's the darker side of this argument. Even if it was necessary, was it morally right? The numbers are staggering. According to Legends estimates, the first Death Star carried 1.5 to 2 million personnel, from officers to stormtroopers to engineers, technicians, and even conscripted workers. The second Death Star, still under construction during the Return of the Jedi, was projected to hold 2.5 to 3 million people. Not all of them were die-hard Imperial loyalists. Many were low-level technicians, prisoners forced into labour, or contractors who took the job because the Empire controlled the galaxy's economy. In fact, Kevin Smith's Clerks famously satirised this point, noting that independent contractors, plumbers, electricians and welders would all have been killed when the station was destroyed. When Luke destroyed the Death Star, he didn't just kill Grand Moff Tarkin and Imperial officers, he ended millions of lives, many of whom were not combatants in any meaningful sense. That raises a moral problem. Does fighting tyranny justify killing so many who may not have had a choice? The Rebel Alliance prided itself on being the moral counterweight to the Empire. Yet in this act, they essentially committed a mass killing of their own, one that would scar families and communities across the galaxy. It blurs the line between liberator and destroyer. This is where the debate becomes most complicated. On one hand, the Death Star was an active military target, not a civilian city. It was designed purely as a weapon of terror, not as a home. That makes its destruction far more justifiable than Alderaan's annihilation. But the line between military and civilian isn't so clear. When millions of workers, soldiers, and unwilling conscripts die in a single explosion, the morality shifts from simple military target to something closer to a moral quagmire. In war, there are rarely clean victories. Every side loses something. And while the galaxy celebrated the destruction of the Death Star, for many, it was also a day of mourning. Proof that even the good guys sometimes must commit acts that are ethically grey to win. Now here's where I stand. The destruction of the Death Star did cross a moral line, even if it was strategically necessary. Nearly 5 million people died across the two stations, even if many served the Empire willingly. Others were victims of circumstance. To wipe them all out in one act, regardless of guilt or innocence, is something that can never be called morally clean. Yes, it was necessary. Without destroying the Death Stars, billions more would have died under the Emperor's terror. In the calculus of war, the act was justified. But justification is not the same as morality. War often forces choices that save many by sacrificing some. And in this case, millions became that sacrifice. To me, that makes the destruction of the Death Stars a tragic moral compromise. Proof that even the righteous cannot win without blood on their hands. So, what do you think? Did destroying the Death Stars cross a moral line? Or was it a justified act of liberation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Next week, we will be discussing if a Jedi should be allowed to use Force choke in self-defense. You won't want to miss it. If you are enjoying the videos, become a member and let's uncover the galaxy's biggest secrets together. Thanks for watching.